Ladies and gentlemen, today is April 16th, 2015, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 223. I'm your host, Keenan Lafferty, and today is Thoughtful Thursday, where we normally learn to be better artists, but today we like to meditate beneath the bonsai tree and contemplate our lives and all the terrible things we've ever done. But really, we actually like to think positively. We think positively. We look at some negative stuff every now and then. We look at some negative stuff, but mostly we're trying to develop our minds as well as our skills, right? Because both are very important to becoming a great artist. So today what we're going to be talking about is a couple phrases that I have heard, and they seem to contradict one another. One is good artist copy and good artist copy, great artist steal. I don't know where I was getting bad from. Okay, so that's quote one. Number two is look, but don't stare. Look, but don't stare. We'll get into that in just a moment. But before we get into that, I need to thank you guys so much for pledging on the Patreon, supporting the show. You guys are freaking awesome. I'm so happy that I'm able to, provide my PSDs for you guys, and you in turn have given back and decided to support the show. So if you're interested in joining us on the Patreon, just click that little link down in the bottom right. If you're watching on YouTube, people on Twitch, you guys know how to get there on your own. All right. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the speech, shall we? All right, so let's start with this. This phrase that I heard is good artist copy, great artist steal. I'm sure you heard this many times, but what does that mean? What does that mean? You might say, Keenan, are you suggesting that I become a thief? Should I just go onto DeviantArt and steal other people's work and then print out pictures and sell it as my own like Hot Topic does with their designs on their shirts? And the answer, of course, is no, not necessarily. But what I will say is that hearing this whole thing about like stealing what other people are doing, like watching what other people do and then just straight up copying them, oftentimes I've found will get you the same results, right? If you're looking at someone, say, like I looked to Day 9, right? When I first wanted to start the show, I told myself, man, it would be so cool to have like this show where I'm like streaming and people like tune in and ask me questions and we can but it'll be for art instead of StarCraft. I actually started doing StarCraft in the very beginning just because I wanted to copy every last little bit, right? I wanted to completely steal every single thing that Day 9 was doing and then just adopt it, make it my own, right? I don't know if you guys remember like the old KNKL crest. It was literally like Hydralisks, and it was like a Protoss void ray head. It was like a coat of arms, but it was like StarCraft creatures and stuff like that. So I completely stole those things from Day 9. And a lot of like speech patterns and like the way that I talk, even my style as an artist is all stolen. It's all stolen from great people who have come before me, figured it out. And then instead of me staying up all night trying to figure out how to do it, I just steal it from somebody else, cram it into one big ball, and then now I present it to you. And that is what is known as style, as my style. So let's go really, really heavy into this. And then I want to sort of balance it out with another phrase, which is the look but don't stare thing. Okay, but let's focus on good artist copying, great artist steal. So a good example of this is also when I've seen a lot of people do like when they're concepting like armors or armor pieces, armor sets, just designs in general. The best artists that I've seen, like the best armors and things that I've seen people create, they've all been inspired by things from history. They've all been inspired from things that were already done. And that's why their work is already so good, because they're just basically building on the shoulders, right? They're building on the shoulders of a giant, right? As opposed to trying to build something up from the floor, right? You got like this giant here. You take that, you stick it there, and then you build on top of it. So for those of you who have been struggling with finding style or finding things that necessarily work for you, or, say you want to work for Riot Games, you want to work for Blizzard Entertainment, I'll give you a really good example of how you can do that. Find somebody that did do that, research their story, figure out what they did, find out what conventions they went to, find out who they talked to, and then what you do is you just steal everything that they did, right? You steal everything and just copy them completely. Down to the minute detail, right? The minute detail. The way they talk, the way they walk, the way they dress, the way they spend their resources, the way they make money, you know, the way they give money away. You know, all those things help to create a life, right? If you steal those lifestyles from other people, they will create a life that is all yours because, right, you want to steal. Here's the one thing that I will say is you want to steal from a bunch of different places, because if you just steal from one person, they can catch on to you. This is the sneaky part. You got to get sneaky here. So you got to steal from a bunch of different resources, stick it all together, and then you have your own life, your own lifestyle. Because a lot of people get caught up in this whole thing of like trying to be original. And unfortunately, it's really hot in here, and I should probably open a window, but I don't want to hear the kids screaming. So if the kids start screaming again, I will close the window. But for right now, it seems like they all must have fallen down and cracked their heads open because they're not making any sounds, which is great for the show, but bad for the children. But anyway, what we were saying was meshing all these things together to create your own thing. Okay? And you guys are still here, right? I just want to make sure that this thing is still going. You guys seeing this? The chat doesn't seem to be working. Man, I have you guys enthralled. You're not saying anything in the chat. But anyway. Okay, so okay. Okay, you guys are good. Hey, you guys are just quiet. You're just listening. You're all in like a little circle listening to me. Very, very awesome. Okay. So anyway, look but don't stare. Let's move on to that one next. Okay? Because another thing that I've heard is a lot of artists want to find their own original thing. They want to find their original, unique little snowflake of an art style to bring to the world, right? You just kind of throw it out. You're in the cloud, right? And you just throw your little snowflake out into the world. But unfortunately, that is probably not the best thing to... Well, you can get your own style, but the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you understand that there's not a lot of originality out there nowadays, right? Everything that's inspired, or all the great things are all inspired by other great things. Great ideas are inspired by other things. It's very rare that super original, never before done things come out these days. And that's not a bad thing. It's really not, because, you know, over time, we've learned what humans like. We've learned what kind of stories we like. And it's good to just take those things, get started with that, right? Steal that storyline, steal that art style, and then work with it a little bit. Because oftentimes this is where style comes in, is that you steal something, right? And then you'll work it, right? You'll be like, okay, I really like the way that this artist did this, but if it were me, I would change like the way he drew the nose here. I would draw the nose a little bit differently. Or maybe I'd give this character some freckles. You know, maybe it would be a different hairstyle, different this, different that. Or you know what? I like both of these styles from both of these artists. What would happen if we put those two together? And that was one of the biggest mentalities that I had going through my life, was I liked so many different artists out there that I liked anime, and I liked learning how to paint like people. I loved doing portraits and like paintings of people and studying figures, studying anatomy. I loved animation. I loved special effects. When I was young and I'd go to the movies, I was like, whoa, that's so cool how they do those special effects. One day I want to do stuff like that. And guess what? Now it's like, with the job working at Riot, not only do I get to do concept work, but now like with the effects in the game, I'm now basically creating special effects for the game, the particle effects, which I've taught you guys how to do in one of the older episodes. And also, I will be expanding on that because there is a very interesting niche in the market that I've noticed that isn't really being filled in terms of particle artists, and like sort of leaning more towards animation. But we'll get into that a little bit later. We'll get into that another day. But anyway, so my mentality was, I like all these different kinds of art. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to steal all these things that people did well, and I'm going to put them all together. And then I created my own style. Okay, so that wraps up going in depth with stealing and the right way to do it, how to not get caught doing it. You want to steal a bunch of things, put them all together. So that way, if the original artist looks at it, they're like, hey, that looks like my nose. That looks like the way that I draw noses. But no, it's not my style, because he does the eyes differently. You know, you want to make sure you don't get caught. You got to be sneaky, sly little stealing artists. Okay? And you will be great. Okay. So, but this brings up an interesting problem. A very interesting problem. And that is, Another thing that a lot of people come up to me and say is, Keenan, sometimes I feel like, I'm just not progressing. I'm not progressing at the rate that I feel like I should be. Or I'm looking at these other artists, like I follow this other artist's blog, and I'm like, oh man, everything I do, I'm just comparing it to them, and it's not as good. And I just feel like I should give up. I'm just going to give up because I'm never going to catch up to these people. So many people younger than me that are already doing better than me. And I just feel like, the jobs, they're taking all the jobs. There's not going to be any more jobs left for me by the time I get good, right? If I ever do. Okay? And this is one of the most poisonous mentalities that I've ever heard. And I hate it. If I could wave my magical wand and delete this thought from everybody's mind in the world, I would. Because there's two things that are wrong with this. There's two major things that are wrong with this mentality. Number one is that we're never going to run out of jobs for artists. There's always people that need artists. There's always people that need more artists. It doesn't matter if you go onto riotgames.com and see, oh, well, there's no listing for 2D production artist. There's no listing for concept artist. I might as well not even apply. Blizzard isn't hiring any artists. All the spots are gone. Oh no. As I've said before, by the time the company posts that they are looking for an artist on their website, they are so desperate. They are so desperate. And you want to know why they are? Because at the point where they have to post it on the website, they have to contact some guy, right? The guy working down in the basement, programming the website. He needs to go onto the freaking listings page, write up a stupid, description of what the type of artist they're looking for is, the requirements and the pluses. And you think anybody really wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. And therefore, nobody does do it until they are practically chomping at the bit, right? They are just at their last straw, right? Last straw, just hanging on for dear life, right? And this is what I learned when I was working at Riot, because I got in, right? I was one of the artists that got in, luckily, when there was a big demand for artists. They were desperate, which is why I guess they took a chance on me. But the other thing that I realized is after I got in, I was like, whew, barely made it. Oh man, I got lucky that I got in when I did, because if I didn't then, man, we're not hiring artists anymore. But you know what the interesting thing was? We never stopped hiring artists. We were always looking for more concept artists. We were looking for more people that could bring value, that could help, do the visual updates, do the particles, do concepts for, Summoner's Rift, the update and all that stuff. How we were going to unify the style of the splashes. There were so many different things that we were always looking for artists. We were always looking for people. So don't ever fall into that trap of thinking that, just because a site isn't listed on the website that you can't go for it. Okay. All right. I don't know how I got onto that, but we're going back. Rewind with me back here. We're going back to look but don't stare. Okay. So this has to do with glancing, right? You want to glance at other artists, scope the competition. When you walk into a bar, a party, the first thing you do is you scope everybody out. That's basically what you do on DeviantArt, right? It's you scope the place out, right? You scope the place, but you're not worried about, the people's names necessarily. You're not worried where they go to school, where they live, what they woke up and had for breakfast. And that's kind of the mentality that you want to have with people, with artists that you watch on DeviantArt. You want to just glance at their work, but be very careful with getting too, I would say the word is intimate. Be careful with getting too intimate with your deviant artists, right? Be careful with getting too devious with your deviant artists. And you want to make sure that you're not constantly following them. And really the point of this is you don't want to just draw a picture and then compare it to somebody else's. Don't draw a picture and then compare it to, one of the artists that you look up to. And the reason why that is because if you're always reinforcing your mind with this thing of, oh, well, it's not good enough, or this person's, better than me, or, it's still, I feel like I'm not improving fast enough, or this person's getting better than me, right? If you fall into that trap, you will subconsciously almost keep yourself back. But if you scope out the competition, you scope your artists, right? Glance, look, but don't stare, right? You look around and be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like what I like the way that character looks. I don't know who did it. I don't know who painted it, but I'm just going to steal that and be like, hey, I'm going to take that, put that in my references. Oh, hey, that's a really nice character you did over there, too. Oh, that's a nice background, nice color theory. I'm going to steal that and put that right in there. Now I have a couple references that I can look at, right? But I don't remember exactly who did them. And the reason why this is good to do, the reason why this is good to look and not stare, at least for me, is because I truly believe that artists must go into a stage of what I will call dark years. You must become a brooding artist at one point. You must delve within yourself. There is a journey that must be taken within you to like find your style, a spiritual journey that you must go. And nobody else can take it but you, right? And if you try to like pull in like your favorite artist or like the guy that your idol that you look up to, it's not going to be the same. It's a journey that must be taken by you and you alone. And it will take you years. It will take you years of your life to find it. It'll take you years of your life to find your style. But trust me, it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. So while you're going on that journey, make sure you're looking but not staring. Okay? Look around but don't stare. All right, you know what time it is. It's time for the question catapults. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please cast your questions over the castle walls, and I will answer them. Looks like we already got good ones coming in from Requiem of Night. Wrong screen. Requiem of Night is asking, so I have a quick question. How do you feel about collabs, working with other artists that have similar art styles? Personally, I didn't do a lot of collaborations when I was growing up, but I don't like... That's what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing wrong. I'm not telling you to like push other artists away or your friends or artists be like, oh no, I can't talk to you anymore because Keenan Lafferty told me to look but don't stare at other people, right? That's not what I'm getting at here. Collabs are awesome, but make sure that you're taking time. You find that time within yourself to just go on your own journey, find your own style, get those references that you like, but don't constantly be comparing yourself to other people. Because the most infuriating thing that I always hear is people saying, I feel like I'm not getting good fast enough, or I feel like I'm not improving at a proper rate. And I'm like, well, where are you getting those, like that from? Where are you getting that feeling from? Who are you comparing yourself to that you're saying you're going slower, right? Maybe you're going at the pace that, like the exact pace that you need to go at because nobody else is you. Nobody else is you. So you need to make sure you take your time. All right. But collabs with similar styles and completely different styles. Yeah, I would say do it because nothing's greater than, talking to artists about the things that they like. Talk to them, get some inspiration, get some advice, things that they maybe like to look at, right? But just be very, very careful about following blogs. Be careful about, you can follow blogs, but just be careful about every time you finish a painting, you take it and you look at it next to somebody else's and be like, okay, how does this stack up? You can do that every once in a while, but I'm telling you, don't do it every time. It will mess you up. Mess you up. All right. Next question. Coming in. Best place to find artists, DeviantArt, ArtStation, Requiem of Night. Or Luperkai, given a great suggestion there. People making webcomics, Fishy Pixels, I love you. Oh, Sea Kettles, great question. Art school, is it worth it? Now, this is a crazy question that gets thrown around a lot throughout the art community, and I truly believe that it just depends on how you feel about it. And my personal opinion is if you even have to question if it's worth it, it's probably not. It's just not. Because the mere fact that you're questioning whether you should go to school or not is... it's like you have a pull in one direction saying, hey, you know what? Maybe I could just kind of figure it out on my own. Maybe art is pretty subjective and it might actually be good for me to kind of go into the dark years, right? I really feel that teaching yourself, being self-taught, not going to school, it can allude to that, or it can really set you up for those dark years where you will become the brooding artist, find your style, work alone. Oh, and here's the other thing that I wanted to say about that is that this is a story that you hear me tell quite a bit, is that the people that I looked up to on DeviantArt, right? The people that I looked at but didn't stare at, right? I kept doing my thing. And then when I got my job at Riot, like a year later, those same people that I looked up to They were the ones now sitting across the table from me, and I was interviewing them to get a job. Isn't that interesting? Because I wasn't so worried about competing with somebody else. I was in competition with myself. And then somehow, I got to the job before technically the people I used to look up to, right? So it's very interesting. I think that's really what it comes down to, is learning to compete with yourself. Compete with yourself, not with others. All right. Fishy Pixels, how do you connect with local artists? People kept saying, yeah, well, here's the thing. Is like, you don't need to like pay tuition and go to an art school in order to meet people. Like, there's tons of cool local art study groups, just around the town. I'm sure if you look it up, like online, you can find like a figure drawing course, or like a oil painting or something like that. Just a simple little class that gets organized locally, and you can go meet people. It's really cool. Also, cons. Cons are a great place to meet people, and you want to know the best way to meet other artists is become an exhibitioner, right? Or exhibitor, right? And the reason why this works is because you will make friends. It's really easy for you to connect with all the other exhibitors there, and they're all artists in Artist Alley. So if you really want to make friends, then go to cons, go to Anime Expo, go to your local, anime con, comic con. There's even like a LARP con here. I went to that one. That one ended up being particularly amazing for me. And just go to cons. Go to cons. It's freaking awesome. Awesome people. All right. Last question. Sorry I cannot answer everybody's. 0,000 saying, I'm 2 years away from becoming 18. It's a very, very interesting way to say you're 16. And saving money to improve my art skills. I'm saving money to go to FZD, School of Design in Singapore. Oh, yeah. I know about that one. Awesome. School is looking to become more and more difficult to get into. Only 12 or 15 openings. Curious if I went to a concept art school, any that I could recommend. I personally, like I said, I'm self-taught. I think that it just comes down to a matter of the way that you learn the best. Do you learn best in groups? Do you like to collaborate? Or do you like to go it alone? Are you a lone ranger? And for me personally, I was a lone wolf. So I knew that I basically took in that look but don't stare mentality, stole a bunch of people's art that I liked, put it into one big piece, and then called it my style, right? So, with all that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and end today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me live on Twitch, people on YouTube. Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. You guys take care. Have a great weekend. And don't forget, if you want to download my PSDs, click that little link there. I think we are currently working on Jinx, and I'm going to have it done by next Tuesday. So basically, it'll be done, and I'll time-lapse the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. So until next time, you guys take care. See ya.